Hello and welcome to a new Monopoly tier list video. In this video we'll be discussing speed dice and how much that impacts the meta of the properties in Monopoly. So if you don't know, once you go around the board once in Monopoly, if you're playing with speed dice rules you can add the speed die. The speed die has a 1, a 2, a 3, a Monopoly man, and a bus. There may be another one, I'm not 100% sure. But pretty much the bus allows you to choose whichever die you want to use, all together. So if you roll a 1, 4, and the bus, you get to move 1, 4, or 5. The Monopoly Man transports you to the next unowned space after your movement, and if all properties are owned, you go to one that is not owned by you, so you're paying some more money. And if you roll triples, so 1, 1, 1, 2, 2, 2, 3, 3, 3, you get to choose anywhere on the board and land there. Now that you know the general rule of speed dice, how will the tier list change? Well, we'll go from bottom to top. So D rank, which is the worst properties in the game, I will still say that sadly it is green properties. Green properties aren't very good. They are still good though. No property set in Monopoly is completely worthless, but greens are a unique case where they're so bad and they're so known as bad that you can really easily use them, because when you auction them, you can get them pretty cheap. Most players won't go over 175 for a green property, 180 maybe. So you can probably just say 200 and then they'll be like, yeah sure, who cares? You're losing money, right? But as soon as you have 2 of them, someone else is going to have to auction, and even if you don't want the green property, they're still paying a lot of money to outbid you because you have a potential monopoly if you have 2 properties. I mean, that's another thing in general with auctioning is people don't want you to have a monopoly. So if you have 2 of any property, yeah, you can just kind of win, especially in speed die where almost like as soon as you go around the board once, there's a really high chance that in 2-3 laps of the board everything will be bought out because it's a speedy game, funnily enough. But yeah, so green D tier, not very good, but still very interesting and obviously a lot better in speed die because you can just get around so much quicker. Now what is the next one? Well, I've been contemplating a lot, and I'm thinking I'm gonna say, in C tier we're gonna have yellow. Yellow is the property before jail, so it is very good still for kind of, because you know, the entire end game of Monopoly is trying to get into jail, so then your opponent has to keep landing on your things until you lose. In speed die this is even more prevalent, because if they keep landing on Monopoly Man, they keep having to pay more and more money as they go around the board. So yellow is still not very good. It's just too expensive. 150 per house is really insane. That's why green isn't very good, because 200 for a house is kind of too much, honestly. Neither of these have any, like, you know, go to this property card either, which some of the other ones, like you know, red and blue, or dark blue, they have that saving grace of there's a card for them, and as well, like, dark blue only has 2 properties, and red is just, we'll get into that when we talk about red. But yellow kind of hits that sour spot where it's on a good position of the board kinda, but just a bit too far away, and most of the time doesn't really do much. At least for the cost, that is. And the next one is something that most people should know me for. I really like the utilities. I think the utilities are quite good in Monopoly, especially in speed dice, because I primarily play with speed dice. It's a lot easier to play with, honestly. So utilities get buffed because obviously if you own both of them, and let's say your opponent owns yellow, and you don't own red for some reason, or the railroads, as soon as they get past orange and that free parking area, they'll immediately land on it. And although there is like a myth that when you get the card that it says 10 times, you don't have to pay 100 times. It's not 10 times 10, it's just 10. If you land on it. But still, like, it's not nothing to scoff at. The potential high roll as well with speed die, because now you could get a 14 on a roll and pay 1400, well, 140 rather, sorry. It's still pretty decent, and as well, they're not too expensive, and they're also pretty good trade barter because it is a full set of 2 properties, and you can just, and because they're spread out from the map, it can come in the clutch, and you don't know how crazy it is. Just sometimes it's getting 100 every round, and it's like, yeah, it's only 100, but that's why they're not that high on the list, because they're good for like early game moneymaker kind of things. It's the same with like railroads. It's like for bleeding out your opponent. If you have the railroads and the utilities, it's like you bleed out so much money that you usually just win by that. But they're not really the main highlight of that strategy, but in speed dice they are better, so that's why I think last time I had them in just C tier, and this one a bit higher. Now, next one, unsurprisingly, is blue, but this time I'm going to put blue at the very top of C tier. Because dark blue, 1, has the card, everyone loves the card, where you go to Mayfair, you go to Boardwalk, you go to insert Monopoly version here, and then you lose the game because they had like a hotel on it or something. Now, the problem with this property set, obviously, is everyone wants it because, oh, it's the biggest property on the board. And the other thing is that everyone kind of has a fear for this property, which is why it can't kind of go higher, because you'll always be outbidded. But at the same time, if you are able to establish it, which is what I'm taking into consideration, it's pretty good, because speed die just allowing, like, most of the time you're always off by 1, right? How many times have you played a game of Monopoly and it's like, you're always off by 1? If you play with speed dice, you're most likely getting that extra 1 and going on to this. And as well, the Monopoly Man, same thing. And because of the bus, it's so much easier to be able to get onto properties that you need, so getting it early game, like first 2 rounds on the second round, it's a lot easier. So that's why dark blue is going to be in C tier. I just think it's generally okay, but not outstanding. Not the game, like, it can win games, obviously. Any Monopoly piece, property rather, can win, but it's not as good. It's just too much of a money investment, honestly, in my opinion. And now we go to B tier, orange tier. Will it have the orange property? No. So B tier, I'm gonna put in this one. Now this might be controversial because I know a lot of people love this one, but pinks are kind of weird. They cap out at around 900 or 800, I believe, for a hotel on the highest property, which is still good, but it's nowhere near the 1,000 that orange brings for the same cost. And its positioning is kind of weird, because as I said, the main strategy of the game is setting up and then going on to jail. And when you break out of jail, you're not going to really roll a 2 or a 4, especially when you have a 1, 2, 3, a bus, and a Monopoly Man on your second die, or third die rather. It's just so much harder to actually land on it. So that's why it's in B tier. I think last time I put it in A tier. This time it is B tier. Now, next property is browns. Browns, they're still okay. They're pretty good. They're early game. If people think that, oh, I dodged Mayfair Boardwalk, well, too bad. You have to pay 500, 200, 50. It's good, but not very. Like, the reason why browns are so good is because they're really cheap. Most of the time, as soon as you get 2 browns, it's kind of just like, if anyone is near it at that time, just put 2 hotels on it, and it's super easy. And as well, browns are really good at being able to buy all the houses, so then you have to auction them. One thing a lot of people don't know about Monopoly is when there's no more houses left, or when it is the last house rather, everyone has to bid to be able to buy that. So if you get yourself into a position where you have a lot of money, buy all those houses, and then bid, if everyone else has a low amount of money, you can bid, let's say, like 10 like Monopoly dollars if everyone's broke, buying one of these houses, and then put it on Mayfair, put it on Boardwalk. And these are one of the properties that really easily allow you to snatch up all the houses, put them on your properties, and then be able to distribute them for free pretty much to every other property you own. It's a very crazy and unfair strategy in my opinion, but if you don't want to have friends, it's a very good strategy to actually win. Which is why I think it is a B tier property, because it's more just better for the utility of what it can bring rather than it being a good property set itself. So now escaping B tier, we have A tier. What am I going to put into A tier? Red properties. And our little Christmas tree we have here. So red is really good. Red is just after in the 11, 12 and 14 slots after jail. And with the advent of the speed die, you can actually roll 14, meaning you have a lot more chances to roll onto red from jail. But as well, it's just like, it's in a really good position. If you own the corner of orange and red, if your opponent ever goes to jail, they're probably just going to lose, honestly, at that point, because if you have even like 3 houses on red and 4 houses on orange, they're paying like $800, and at the end game of Monopoly, 100 swing is really expensive, because most of the time you have, a few hotels, but you normally don't have much money on you, unless you've, recently killed a player. So, having that corner is so, instrumental in winning a lot of games, which is why red has to be really high, honestly. It's the reason kind of why pink is also kind of high, but also lower, because it's less crucial in that strategy. But reds would kind of be, I think a lot of people early on when they play Monopoly, they're like, ew, the red properties, I don't like them, they're as bad as the greens. I like the yellow ones because they give the most amount of money. But the weird thing is one thing people don't understand about Monopoly is that most of the time you don't get to, if they land on Mayfair, Boardwalk, big blue property, you're not really getting $2,000, you're getting they lose the game. But if they don't have $1,000 in all of their value and they land on, the last orange, they also just lose the game. Same with the reds, which is why a lot of the earlier properties are just more powerful, because you don't really get to that $2,000 margin in a game of Monopoly, except for at the start. So that's the reason why orange is so high up for me. Now one thing I have to do, which makes me very sad, is my favorite property set is also A tier. I don't know if I made it S tier in my previous ranking, but I gotta do it for this one. Light blues is still very good. In my opinion, they are one of the best property sets in the entire game, hence the ranking. But at the same time, I think these ones can really easily win a game, and I think a lot of people know this. I feel every single time I play a game of Monopoly, everyone tries to snatch up the light blues, because like the browns, they're so cheap and easy to set up, but at the same time they're actually a threat, because 600, 550, that's a lot of money to just have to dole out every single time you pass go. That's why it makes it more of a threat than Bran. Obviously with this one as well, you can easily, crank out more properties to buy them cheaper later. The same strategy with Bran. But because light blues are actually a lot better and standalone, that's why they're in a higher position. And that's why I think they deserve the A tier. Now the top two, how am I gonna do this? Oh, but it's speed die and, ZZK loves their trains. I'm not too sure actually. But I'm gonna do the most controversial thing in the world and say first, orange. Orange is the best property set in the game of actual properties. It gets to 1,000 and I believe 850 on the smaller ones. When you have hotels are pretty easy because it's only 1,000 per pop, which makes it so easy just to slam them down and get some threats going early game, and then really make those threats even bigger late game when you have hotels. They're in the prime position, right after jail on 6, 8, 9. Really good spots. And aforementioned before, red, it just becomes 6, 8, 9, 11, 12, 14. Or if you just get a Monopoly Man and a small roll, you also land on these. So it just becomes this unfair, like, just death pit. Your opponent won't be able to win if you snatch these. I think they're also really well known, so it is harder to get them, obviously. But if you are able to snatch them up, you're going to be sitting in a good spot. Now the final one, the railroads. I'm going to put these at the very top. The very top of the entire game. Why do I do this? Because in speed die rule, let's say you roll a 7, most of the time that will be a chance, community chest, tax, that type of space. But with the Monopoly Man, you get to move extra. And as well, most of the time you're moving that 1, 2 extra space more, you're going to be landing on a lot more railroads, pretty much. And railroads are really good at bleeding out competition, same with, utilities. Which is why they become so much more powerful, and as well you don't have to worry about, getting properties on them. They're just, there you go, you don't need houses, you don't need hotels, bam, 200 if you own all of them. And even if someone tries to, sneak one away, 100 isn't much to scoff at. 100 is pretty much what you get for the utilities. And obviously, the luck dependency on the utilities is what makes them so low, but for the railroads, getting just flat 100 is still really good. And it is, yes, a $600 investment. That's pretty much the same as, the pinks, and everyone loves the pinks. Hell, everyone thinks that the dark blues are the, be-all, end-all of properties, and they're just under 800. But yeah, so my humble opinion, I believe the railroads is best with speed die, that is. I think without speed die, they're more of an A tier. I think it goes like this. This is what it looks like without speed die. With speed die, I think it looks a bit more like this. Now, I'm very considerate. I could say that, it does deserve to be like this. Because they are really, the utilities are very, hit or miss. And if you're not very lucky, if, everyone keeps landing 1s or 2s, you're not going to have a fun time. But with the Monopoly Man, if they roll an 8 or a 10, and they're nowhere near it, and then they have to go to it, it's the reason why in speed die I think they're a lot better, just because of the Monopoly Man. The Monopoly Man is literally how this game works when you have the speed die, and what you have to account for. But with that, that is my new and updated 2021 Monopoly tier list for the properties in speed die Monopoly. I hope you had a nice day, and good night.